Hello, it's me again. I've been awake for a while now. I didn't manage to sleep last night. I had these thoughts that kept recurring, and I had to keep sitting up and writing them down because that's what I do with recurring thoughts. I expect everyone does. Well, maybe they don't. Anyway, they were in rhyme-ish, just a bit like my poems in rhyme-ish, and but they're all about the prohibitionists, the early ones, back in the 1920s and 30s, and so forth, and all those people. Anyway, if I fall asleep while I'm recording this, you'll have to phone me up and wake me up. But you won't be able to do that because this is a recording and not live. So, unlucky on that. So anyway, I've got to put these on because I can't bloody see because my eyes are sort of half shut. So anyway, it's called the early prohibitionists or something like that. But of the early prohibitionists, there's a few that were really the worst. I'll start with a politician, a millionaire named William Hearst. He owns some forest to turn into pulp, and I've read that he was not a nice fellow. He also owned many newspapers, but his journalism was nicknamed Yellow. Well, according to the president, whose shortened name was Ted, he bought a paper to read the news and got pages of fiction instead. So he thought of a plan to diminish the man and declared lots of land national parks. Much of this land was owned by Hearst. Teddy's bite was worse than his bark. To his forest in Mexico he sent gangs of men to harvest to make pulp for his papers. But he never expected Pancho Villa or his northern division's capers. La cucaracha, they sang, as they marched into battle, and they stopped his men cutting the woods. They sang about marijuana, a word none of Hearst's men understood. In the newspapers he vilified them, called them all cutthroats and thieves, blaming all on this weed marijuana until everybody believed. From the US Treasury Department, Andrew Millen, Secretary of State, with ulterior motives, joined in with him in order to further the hate. He appointed a racist named Anslinger, who was married to his niece. In the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, he was head of the new drug police. He then brought in his own drugs expert, a scientist doctor named Munch. You should hear what this guy had to say, then you'd know that he was what I'd call out to lunch. He swore that marijuana had made him temporarily insane. But what would you expect after being a bat? How could he ever be the same? There were others who joined in this battle with plenty of money to add. They financed the propaganda that made marijuana sound bad. But the reason for them wasn't a drug that they'd nicknamed loco weed. It was really about cannabis hemp and its incredible, useful seed. These guys were invested in oil from the ground, along with that Secretary of State. By the time all the farmers realised the trick, it was then already too late. The truth of the matter was hidden because of new industry centred on underground oil. 3 gallons from an acre of hemp can be made, then still using the spoil. After extracting oil, you still get 3 tons of flour from the husk of the seed, but the oil from the ground was already found and they couldn't see past their own greed. But back to the plant. There's still more, from the leaves, flower stems and the roots, from salads to textiles, medicine to bricks. Oh, and not forgetting the zoots. There's thousands and thousands of uses, but that's not the point of this verse. It's the root of prohibition, and to name and shame the worst. Andrew Mellon, William Hurst and Lamont DuPont II were invested in forests and a force to certainly be reckoned. When slavery ended, to harvest the hemp was expensive and on the decline, but a recently patented harvest machine did the job in a fraction of time. The owner of Standard Oil, John D. Rockefeller Jr., did insist to his friends and other investors the machine was quite hit and miss. He had always said alcohol was bad. It was something he continued to lobby. But he made gasoline. He owned Standard Oil, so it was more than a millionaire's hobby. Mellon and DuPont joined with Rockefeller and invested in oil together. To remove hemp from the equation would seem to be their endeavour. Everyone knew of hemp and that it was cannabis too. But this marijuana was something they didn't and somehow scarily knew. So in 1936 they passed the Marijuana Tax Act. So hemp became too costly a crop, and that was a statement of fact. Then they soon made it all quite illegal except to own the seed. Although this was all a long time ago, prohibition is still about greed. One love.